Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Inspire series. And thanks, Dr. Bhavani, for joining us on this. We know it's quite late over there at Houston, and thanks for waking up, like being for us. And let me take you through the session. And today we have Dr. Bhavani, who is a low vision specialist. Basically, she graduated from village school way back into 1997 and continued to pursue her OD from Houston. And she has been practicing low vision, I would say, for the last over 20 years. And she has many accolades to her credit, be it low vision diplomate from American Academy of Optometry. And she also leads the director of Dan Alden Center for Vision Rehabilitation, which is one of the most comprehensive visual rehabilitation programs in Houston. And her work revolves around providing computer training, simulations to those with low vision, and help them with in their daily activities, be it kitchen or mostly towards visual rehabilitation, be it any condition, be it a glaucoma or macular degeneration or any other condition. And today she has consented to talk to about the main practices or how you can establish a comprehensive vision rehabilitation program, which is a successful model. You can take it up for your further business as a business model. And she will be talking to us for like maybe 45 minutes or so. And then maybe when you have questions, please post it in our chat box. We will take it up after the session. And who has submitted during their questions, we hope it will be answered during the session. If not, we will take it up again at the end. So over to you to Dr. Bhavani, and thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. You're very sweet for inviting me to speak. I actually graduated in 1995 from the Elite School of Optometry. And I came to Michigan to do my optometry school, and I graduated from there. And then I've been practicing low vision pretty much for the past 25 years. I know that dates me by declaring myself like this, but that's a long journey. I'm hoping that keeping true to your title of today's presentation, or the theme behind your presentation, is actually inspire, right? So hopefully this talk will be an inspiration for you and for all your listeners, future optometrists or current optometrists, to think about low vision as a viable option to practice. Like I said, I graduated from optometry school, and then I pretty much came here right away. And I've always been passionate about low vision. So when I moved to Houston back in 2007, I was tasked with setting up a comprehensive vision rehabilitation program. Fortunately for me, the chairman at that time gave me only two tasks. He said it has to be state of the art, and you cannot turn anybody away. Everybody has to be taken care of. So just those two tasks, I set about creating a comprehensive program, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about. Of course, the way we practice in the US is different from the way you practice in India. The ability to spend money is different. Not everybody can spend money to the same extent. So hopefully you will have, I'm going to show you what the ideal program looks like. And then you can pick and choose from that and then create your own. And hopefully that'll inspire you to sort of think out of the box. Like Gopi introduced earlier, I direct the Dan Arnold Center for Vision Rehabilitation. I'm an associate professor with the University of Texas Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Science. I work at the 18th floor of that building that you see right there. If you think about for a second, like the things we need for our vision in a day, right? You wake up, you pour yourself coffee, or somebody makes you coffee. You read the newspaper, you get dressed, you shave, you drive to work, you check your email, you have lunch, you talk to your neighbor, you talk to your friend, you talk to your colleague, you go for a walk, well, pretty much everything, isn't it? So vision is not used just for reading, it's used for everything. We live in a sighted world. As a creature, we are very visually driven. So everything we do from the moment we wake up to the moment your head hits the pillow, you're using your vision for everything. So even a small amount is impacted. It impacts your function. It impacts the way you do things. It impacts pretty much everything. Vision loss in any amount compromises function more than any other single physical impairment. Did you know that losing both your legs would affect your life less than losing your central vision? And vision loss is feared second only to loss of mental capacity. So people are afraid of losing their vision more than they're afraid of going crazy. Depression correlates with loss of function. The more the number of activities we give up as an individual, the more we're likely to be depressed. And rehabilitation to restore function is the key. So with that in mind, we create a team approach. A comprehensive vision rehabilitation program should have low vision evaluation, should have rehabilitation training. In our case, we do it with an occupational therapist, and should have orientation mobility training. An O&M is a specialist that teaches patients how to walk with a blind cane, how to cross the streets, how to take a public transportation, how to take a bus, how to take a train, and find their way. This is what our team has. So my particular practice has all these components. So vision rehabilitation actually uses a variety of skills. So what is vision rehabilitation? It's not just giving a magnifier, right? You use a variety of strategies like making targets bigger, bringing it closer, giving optical magnification, electronic magnification. So devices that may be appropriate to a particular distance or a task, controlling lighting, giving contrast, training in the effective use of residual vision, training in the use of devices for a specific task, and referral to support groups and resources. So all this is part of a successful vision rehabilitation program. So in our particular practice, or any comprehensive vision rehabilitation program, should be able to treat any of these diseases that are eye related. These are eye diseases: macular degeneration, glaucoma, retinopathy of prematurity, RP, optic neuritis, your AIONs, IONs, diabetic retinopathy. We also treat non-visual conditions, meaning non-ocular conditions like stroke, homonymous hemianopias, double vision caused by traumatic brain injury, motor vehicle injuries, aneurysms. So all those cause vision problems. Traumatic brain injury causes issues with balance, issues with walking, issues with peripheral vision, double vision, like I mentioned earlier. So we treat all of them. So if you talk about like what is a good low vision, what is it supposed to be? And I'll share these slides with Gopi so you can have it. That way you don't have to write it down. If you are trying to write it down, you don't have to write it down. So a comprehensive low vision evaluation starts with a thorough functional history. And we'll talk about what constitutes a functional history. A good visual acuity measurement. Visual acuity measurement using an ETDRS chart. I'm not talking about your Snellen chart. Contrast sensitivity. You can use whatever method you have available to you. There's the Mars contrast sensitivity test. There's the computerized contrast sensitivity test. There's a Logmar contrast sensitivity test, a Peli-Robson contrast sensitivity test. There are so many tests available. It doesn't matter what you use, but use a contrast sensitivity test. It's a big indicator of function more than the vision acuity itself. So you definitely want to measure contrast sensitivity. Plotting the blind spots. So blind spots basically are scotomas in the middle of their vision, or it could be a peripheral blind spot, it doesn't matter. But we're talking about scotomas that are in the way, that are in the center. If the scotoma is in the center, we do what's called as microperimetry. Basically, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But microperimetry is basically perimetry done right at the fovea while the fundus is actively viewed. So it's visual field superimposed on the fovea. So we can see exactly where it is working, where it is not working, and where is the location of the next best spot. We call that the sweet spot or their preferred retinal locus. So we plot that. Exposure to magnification devices. We have the full array of magnification tools that we We demonstrate to patients based on their needs. Assess for additional training. Does this person need more training than what I can do in the clinic? Is it more than just handing off a simple magnifier? And then we counsel them. Do they have a blinding condition? Do they have a disease that's going to potentially cause them blindness? Are they a young child that's going to need to go to school? How are they going to see in school? And then what happens when they hit the age to drive? What happens when they hit the age to go to work? So we start counseling them right from the beginning. Education, we educate them on what kind of vitamins to take, what kind of treatment options are available out there. And we talk about resources. What kind of community resources are out there? What is free? We all love free stuff, right? I'm a big proponent of accessing community resources that are already out there. The state of Texas, for instance, offers something called as, I think it's called the STARC, State of Texas Access for, it's basically what it is emergency care, basically. So let's say, for instance, if there is a tornado or if there's a hurricane or a cyclone, then patients that are visually impaired get registered. It's a registry. So they get registered there, and these patients are evacuated first. But if there's a fire, then those patients get evacuated first because people know that they can't get out on their own. So there are community resources like that that we should be aware of. You should be aware of what is available in your community for free, or what the government provides that they can easily access. And this is unique to each city and unique to each state. So not every state in the US has this. Not every city in the US has this. Like even Uber, for instance, is not available in every city. You'd be surprised, right? You have more Uber, Olas, and stuff, three-wheeler options like auto rickshaws that are available in India that are not necessarily available in the US. So it depends on, so you have to look at what is available to you and then extend that resource to that patient. So I put this in here for the benefit of those that are actually actively interested in starting a practice in low vision. So a good medical history starts with medical history and functional history. The medical history to us comes from the ophthalmologist that is referring the patient to us. In our case, we have ophthalmologists referring, we have optometrists that refer to us, we have neurologists that refer patients to us, we have other occupational therapists that refer to us. So we have patients coming in from various different places. So my goal is not to second guess their diagnosis. So if Dr. Subramanian tells me, hey, Dr. Iyer, this patient has diabetic retinopathy, I'm sending him to you for vision rehabilitation, I take that. I don't second guess it. I don't try to dilate the eye. I don't try to do more routine testing on him. That's not what I'm doing. I'm taking that diagnosis and then I'm rehabilitating that patient. So one of the questions that somebody had posted was, do we always have to be part of a hospital system? Absolutely not. You just need referrals from the hospital system, or you just need referrals from other physicians who are able to feed you patients. That comes with networking. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later. So, so you want to start with, our starting point is their medical history, okay? So for me, the history of present illness is, in this case, low vision. That's what they're here for. So we want to know what their past medical history is. Is it glaucoma? Is it macular degeneration? Is it RP? Is it ROP? Because that dictates, the disease will influence what kind of scotoma the patient has. If it's ARMD, it's going to be a central scotoma. If it's a POAG, maybe a secocentral scotoma. It may be a peripheral field loss. If it's diabetic retinopathy, I might have a whole bunch of scotomas in the middle with some pockets of good vision, right? So the disease will influence the scotoma, and the scotoma will influence the functional loss. If they don't have central vision, if the scotoma is in the middle, then they're not going to be able to see faces. They're not going to be able to read. They're not going to be able to tie their shoelace. But they may be, depending on how big that scotoma is, they may be okay driving. They may be okay watching television. But all their struggles may be up close and nothing far away. On the flip side, take a person with RP, advanced RP. That person may have absolutely no trouble reading. That may have no problems with tying a shoelace or seeing to thread a needle, but cannot get up and walk around. So depending on what kind of diagnosis they have, that's going to determine what kind of functional loss they have. And the type of functional loss they have is going to influence the choice of device, which in turn is going to influence what kind of training you're going to give that patient. So that initial past medical history is so important to have a good past history. And I always require that they have had a comprehensive dilated eye exam with an ophthalmologist or an optometrist. So that's a different practice altogether. My practice, I do not dilate the eye. I do not check pressures. I'm not checking muscles. I'm not doing any of that. That's not my goal. My goal is, can I take this individual, see what functional problems he has, and can I match him up with some tools, devices, strategies, lighting, and rehabilitation to get him from functional difficulty to functional independence. That's the goal. So we already talked about, we like to know what kind of other comorbidities do they have. Do they have diabetes? Do they have hypertension? Have they had a stroke? Do they have Parkinson's? If they have Parkinson's and if they have a shaky hand, I'm not going to be able to prescribe that many handheld magnifiers. Not everything is going to be appropriate if they can't hold their hand steady, right? A stand magnifier that is very heavy may not be appropriate either. I also like to know what kind of medications they're on and whether or not they're able to read their medications. Doctors prescribe medications, the pharmacy dispenses it, but what if your patient cannot see the medication? What if the patient cannot see to instill the eye drops? Glaucoma patients are usually on 3, 4 eye drops, and each of them has a different color cap. Now, the problem is some of these patients also have ARMD. So now they don't have central vision, they don't have the cones, they've lost the ability to tell colors, and then they've got glaucoma. Now they've got to use drops. So if they can't keep track of what medication is what and what time it's supposed to go in, then you've got a problem with compliance, right? So our job is also to make sure that they are able to see the medications and know exactly how many times and when they're supposed to be using it in which eye. So, so when we say functional history, right? Functional history, what does that mean? All right, like we all know history. Oh, my eye is hurting, my eye is burning. Is it red? Is it blurry? That's all ocular history. When we talk about functional history, what we're talking about is, can you see to read your bill? Can you see to write your check? Can you maintain your own finances, or does your son have to come in and do it? Can you work on a computer? Can they do their job? Can they drive a vehicle? Can they see to cook, to feed themselves? Can they see the food on their plate? Can they do personal grooming? Hobbies, how about stitching, sewing, crocheting, or painting? A lot of our patients like to paint, or they like to play instruments or sing music, right? How about shopping, walking without falling, bumping, making a phone call, text their family? How about glare? So these are all functional questions. And I hope, I mean, I know I can't see your faces in the audience, and I really wish I could, but these are very different from the type of questions you would typically ask in an eye exam. And that's what I want you to understand. A low vision exam is not an eye exam. A low vision exam is a functional exam. So basically your questions are all functional, and you're gonna ask the patient what they're having trouble with, and it's very task oriented. Let me see. Okay, I think part of my screen kind of this. Let me see if I can move this down. Is the whole screen visible to you all?
Yeah.
Yep.
It is. Oh, all right. So we like to talk about the laterality, right? Or onset, the timing of onset. Is it acute onset? Is it chronic onset? If it's an acute onset, they're going to be miserable. Imagine if you just lost vision in both your eyes, or even in one eye. You're going to be miserable. You haven't had any time to cope with it. So there's an emotional component involved there. Laterality, if it's chronic, like RP, for instance, it's been going on for a very long time. And if it's been going on for a long time, they're not quite as desperate because they have had some time to emotionally cope with it. They've had some time to adjust to it, right? They've had some time to figure out options. How about laterality? Is one eye affected or both eyes affected? Are they living situation? Are they living alone? Is there somebody to give them care? Do they live with a family member? Or are they living by themselves? The US is very isolated society, okay? People live by them. Even my 91-year-old that drove herself to the appointment yesterday lives alone. She cooks by herself, takes care of herself, does everything herself, and she's sharp as a tack. And believe it or not, she made an appointment for her next year follow-up. And I'm just thinking, wow, she's 91 and she wants her next year's follow-up right now. I know you're thinking, like, really? Right? I have a 98-year-old that fights me every time he comes in because he wants to drive. And I'm like, no, sir, you are not driving. You're 98. You need not be driving. But nope, I want to drive. That's like taking away my independence. Don't take away my independence, right? Do they have access to, and we live in a society where everywhere you need to go anywhere, you need a car. If you don't have a car, too bad. You're not getting out of your house. The closest shop is 3 miles away. Imagine if you're walking with a walker, how are you going to go get your groceries? You're not going to be able to. If you're not computer savvy, or even if you're computer savvy and you cannot see your computer, you're not going to be able to order food online, right? There's no Zomato and Tomato here, like, yeah, well, there's Uber Eats. But the thing is, it costs more, right? People want that independence. And do they live close to a bus or train station? People here that are older than 70 years of age can actually get free bus rides. They don't have to pay for their bus rides. There's something called Metro Lift, which will actually go to the patient's home and pick them up from their home and bring them to their doctor's appointments. But that's only if you live within the city. But if you don't live within the city, then how do you get around, right? And then the next thing we want to know is, are they active? Do they participate? Do they walk every day? Do they go to church? Do they go to the temple, or where do they go? Or are they working? A lot of my patients are still working. The 91-year-old I told you about, still working. She is still working. So the 98-year-old is an accountant and he is still working. So and I will not be surprised if he easily hits 110. No doubts about that. She walked in with a heel that high at 91. So people are very, very aggressively independent, okay? Are they living in a home or an apartment? Do they have stairs or no stairs? Because if they have stairs, they got to climb down the stairs. Are they likely to fall? Here's where the contrast sensitivity ties in, okay? If their contrast is reduced, are they likely to fall? Okay? So you got to constantly ask yourself, does this person have enough vision to accomplish the things that I'm asking them about? Have they used any low vision devices? Have they used a cane? Have they used a guide dog? Do they have an emergency plan in place? A lot of these patients live alone. My 89-year-old lady yesterday, she fell. And if you live alone and if you fall, then what happens? Who's going to pick you up? Nobody knows you fell, right? So they wear a emergency watch that is connected to the local hospital system. And all they do is hit that button on the watch and it calls 911. So do they have an emergency plan in place? So those are questions that we ask. Now you have to explore and see what kind of resources are available in the community that you're practicing in. Maybe that is something you present to the hospital system nearby. Now, everybody has to think at the highest level, like how you are, right? To me, anybody that practices low vision is already practicing at the highest level of their ethics, right? This is almost a noble practice, in my opinion, right? Because you have to have a very deep sense of empathy. You have to have a very deep sense of committedness, a lot of patience to deal with this patient population. And most of all, you want to do good for people. And if you do feel all that, then you're right for low vision. Additional questionnaires that we ask the geriatric depression scale. It's scaled out of 15. And I'm happy to share the questions. I'm not sure, I might have already added it in the next set, but so it's out of 15. So if their score, let me see, is that, yeah, the depression score is here. So that's the scale, okay? And I can share it with you if you're interested. I can, or you can even Google it. It's not a big deal. So it's scored out of 15. And if they score 0 to 4, it's considered normal. And 5 to 8 indicates mild depression. 9 to 11 is moderate depression. And 12 to 15 is frank depression. Okay. We have a question. Every patient that comes through the low vision clinic gets this questionnaire. We also ask a false risk score. We also assess a false risk. So are they at risk for falls? And it's, once again, it's the Morse-Walsh risk score, also available online. You can easily look it up and add that to your arsenal of questionnaires that you're asking. So this, in a nutshell, is what our initial assessment, initial intake looks like. This is not my assessment. This is just the intake. It takes about half an hour to do an intake. Visual acuity. Please have all of these in stock. Okay, you have to have an ETDRS chart and Snellen. Keep both of them. Okay, you need an OKN drum for your nonverbals. You need an Allen card also for nonverbal patients or patients that are really, really severely impaired. Leah symbols. I love the Leah symbols. Actually, I like matching the Leah symbols for the little kids. I just give them the card and then I just sit on the floor with them and I just play with them and play matching cards with them. You have to get some sense of what their acuity is. Okay, you can usually get better than count fingers. If it's really bad, then preferential looking charts, cups, pencils, anything you find, paper clips. You know, I've used all of the above, depending on how terrible their communication skills are. Some of my patients come in with multiple impairments, right? They've been in a motor vehicle accident. They have aphasia. They have just global aphasia. They're not able to speak. They're not able to understand. They're not able to hold their head steady. So sometimes you might have to use random stuff that you find in the clinic, like maybe a cell phone, or I might use a cup and say, okay, can you see this? Then I might ask, what would you do with it? And if they say drink it, then okay, fine. You know, then we know that they can at least see that size, and I go from there. Finding the scotoma. Like I said, you know, in our clinic, if it's a central scotoma, we use microperimetry. If it's a peripheral scotoma or peripheral field loss, then we use the Octopus Pro, which is what we like. But not everybody has that, right? So you may have the Maya. We have the microperimetry. The MP3 is what we use by NIDAC. You don't need any of that. If you don't have it, it's okay, because not everybody practices in a hospital, right? You might be in a field clinic. You might be in a rural clinic where you don't necessarily have access to it. So if you don't have access to it, there's something called as a California central field test. They sell it for like $50. I think you use pens and you use paper and little pen lights, and then you can track it that way. So we'll come back to the preferred retinal locus in a moment. This is an image taken with the MP3, the NIDAC microperimetry. You can see the optic nerve right there. You can see the, the branches, the central retinal artery and vein, branch retinal artery and vein, inferior branch retinal artery and vein. Here in the macula, there's a big old scotoma. If you see that, there's a nice C-shaped area of dense scotoma. This dark red color is an area of dense scotoma. It's like a C-shaped scotoma with the PRL in the middle. The PRL is right there, that cluster of blue points. So when this is his right eye. So when this person reads, okay, so if he is reading Bhavani, B and H may be seen, VA and I may not be seen, okay? And then Iyer will be seen. So he'll have a hard time reading across because he has a scotoma to the right of whatever he's looking at. So this helps us understand when we teach the patient, when we say, okay, when you look straight ahead, you're going to have a blind spot. So you're going to move your eye to the 3 o'clock of whatever you're looking at. So you keep moving your eye towards the 3 o'clock. That's where the eccentric viewing angle is. And that's what we use to teach the patient. We tell them where the good spots are. Or if he's looking at my face, and I might tell that patient, okay, look at my face. Now, if you look at my nose, then this side of my face is missing. So instead, what I want you to do is move your eye towards my right ear, which is his 3 o'clock, right? Move your eye towards my right ear, then all of a sudden my entire face comes in clearer. So just with that one, you can really floor the patient and really impress them, okay? So patients get so happy. They're like, oh my gosh, I can see your face now. So they get super happy. So you're teaching them tricks and strategies on how to use what they have. If none of those are available, you can use the clock method or even the chair side method, where using the, the tester sits in front of them and says, okay, which side of my face is clear? And then use that. You can even determine where the blind spot is and where the PRL is just based on the way that you read the ETDRS chart. You can just tell them if none of these are available, you can use the clock dial method too. But if none of these are available, you can simply listen to the patient the way they read the chart. So if you use the ETDRS chart, you know how there's H, V, D, Z, D, S. And if they have a central scotoma that's big enough, what they'll do is they'll read the H and then they'll read the S, but they won't read anything in between. That tells you there's a scotoma in the middle, right? Then you can ask the patient, is the H popping out or is the S popping out at you? Which is easier? Which extremity is easier? And based on what they're telling you, then you can train the patient and say, okay, here's where your good spot is. Here's how you need to move your eye. We talked about this, the California pointer method. Here's the flashcard method. The OTs are very good at using that. So they sit in front of the patient and bring the card in different directions and teach them how to help them find their blind spot. So we also teach them how to use that good spot by using these flashcards. For peripheral field, like I said, we use the octopus. You can also use the tangent screen. You can use the Humphreys Esterman. You can use confrontation, worst case scenario. You can use any of these. But as long as you do something and have an idea of what their peripheral field looks like. Of course, now we switch gears to talk about magnification, right? Okay, so I've got a blind spot. You've determined that this person has a blind spot. Then what do you do with that, right? Like you've got to get to the next stage. So here's where the business component comes in, right? So you demonstrate magnification, you demonstrate low vision devices. 50% of our RVUs are generated from low vision devices. That's a pretty big deal. We don't do surgery, right? But when we sell devices to patients, that brings in a significant revenue to the department. And that's how we make up for what we don't do by doing surgery. We make up for it in sale of devices. And the sale of devices, usually devices are marked up by 2 to 2.5 times, okay? So easily on a CCTV, if me seeing a patient, my services will generate an RVU of, let's say, 3.5 RVU for my time with that patient. Sale of devices is something like 60 RVUs. That's how much sale of devices can generate. And almost all your low vision patients, no matter how blind they are, they're going to ask you for a pair of glasses. Even at NLP, they'll still say, can I get a pair of glasses? And you know what? It's okay to give them something for safety because you don't want them to walk into a tree limb, right? We always recommend safety eyewear. So there's another sale of spectacle. So if you're close enough to an optical shop, or if you own the optical shop, you increase your revenue by sale of devices. Options for reading, right? Spectacle mounted microscopes. RVUs on those are like 15 or 20. It generates more RVU than my exam is the point I'm trying to make. Okay, I might spend 1 hour per exam. Per day, I do 6 exams. That's it. That's all the number of patients I can see because each exam is 1 hour long. Okay, that'll fetch me 3.5 RVUs. But if I sell a device, especially the higher end devices, I'm talking 10 RVUs for just one patient, right? So your revenue generating capability is much higher when you sell devices. Handheld magnifiers, of course, they are smaller, low-end devices, so they're not going to be that expensive. Stand magnifiers, sure. Electronic reading machines, desktops, portables, all those are, significantly more expensive, and your revenue generation is going to be significantly higher. Similarly, optical character recognizers. Options for distance telescopes. We make a killing on bioptic telescopes because bioptic telescopes allow you to, from an RVU point of view, okay, now we don't mark them up that much because the state dictates how much they will pay for these. Okay, the state tells you what is allowed and what is not allowed. So we have to conform within the dictates of the state, but still from an RVU generation point of view, bioptic telescopes are a very lucrative option. And we fit a lot of bioptic telescopes, and we don't fit them indiscriminately. We're very careful about who we choose to fit these bioptic telescopes on. But even with us being so careful in the way we, fit these bioptic telescopes, it is a very, very high revenue point. Some the binocular sports scope monoculars and things like that are not big income generators. But for those of you that are wanting to go into it for the purpose of business, definitely focus on the bioptic telescopes, because that is a very highly specialized, very specific, and very high income generator for practices. The occupational therapist will focus on, like we talked about, taking what we do in the clinic and then transitioning it to the patient's home. So the OT kind of service serves as, it continues to percolate funds into the department by, because they continue to work with the patient. And sometimes with me, they may just select one, but then with the OT, they may select a few more devices. When the OT goes to the patient's home, and she may see, oh, there's so many other options out there that, oh, maybe I should be thinking about that. Right? Like maybe this is a task that I could be doing. Maybe this is a device that I want. So I'll share these slides with you all because I don't want to run out of time, because I want to make sure that we have time to answer questions. But basically, the OT's goal is to make sure that they take what we do in the clinic and transfer it to the patient's home and make sure that the patient is successful. Now, because we use third-party coverage, insurance covers occupational therapy. So that continues to be a source of revenue stream for us. Now, if you're in private practice in India, what you might want to do is have occupational therapists and patients can pay to, go through the occupational therapy training. From keeping things clutter-free, keeping things safe, and being safe within their environment, right? Money identification. There's a whole bunch of strategies that they teach patients. Addressing glare, cooking. Can I see to cook an onion on a white blackboard, on a blackboard may stand out better than an onion on a whiteboard. So how to add contrast to whatever they're doing. They may go over recreation and leisure activities and address transportation. Community resources, we talked about that. Orientation mobility is another service we provide. We teach patients how to walk, how to, cross streets and things like that. Only an O&M can teach them how to cross streets. We teach them how to walk within the campus. Increase safety, fall prevention, right? So the one on the left looks like it's a high risk for falls, but when you increase the lighting and add some extra, tape at the edge of the steps, and that makes it easier for the patients to see. There were some questions about peripheral field loss. Yes, homonymous hemianopia will definitely cause some peripheral field loss, have difficulties walking, they may run into things. We fit a variety of prisms, peripheral field prisms, to help, once again, another source of revenue. So, the one over here, this is called a button style prism. We call it a peripheral field awareness system. Some people call it the Gottlieb system. It was because originally designed by a doctor named Gottlieb. This is the Pelly system, where there's a wedge on the top and a wedge at the bottom. And then this is just a straight sectoral prism that goes from top to bottom. So all these are options depending on the severity of the hemianopia, depending on what they want to accomplish. Any of these are options. Once again, these are spectacle based. So, and they're very, very highly specific to the patient and not something they can go order off of Amazon, right? So another source of revenue for you. So hopefully that gives you, ideas on how to incorporate. I think there's only one state or maybe two states that allow prisms for the purpose of driving. So we typically prescribe these for the purpose of mobility. We don't prescribe them for the purpose of driving. So coming down to our last slide, wow, 4 more minutes. So, a comprehensive program, in my opinion, should include all of these. It should have a low vision evaluation that is directed by a low vision optometrist that has training and knowledge in the disease component, that has training and knowledge in the devices component, understands the optics of how things work, and directed by the whole program is run by the low vision optometrist. Orientation mobility training to teach patients how to walk without falling and how to cross streets and do stuff like that. Occupational therapy training to learn to live independently within their home environment and make sure that the devices that the optometrist is prescribing is applicable in that patient's home, applicable and ergonomic for that particular patient, and devices. So in our practice, we actually offer a loaner library. So a loaner library is basically a whole bunch of devices, all the devices that are out there. We actually talk to the manufacturers and have them give us some loaner sets so that the patients can borrow it for a couple of weeks and then try it at their house. And if they like it, they bring the loaner device back and then purchase the actual one. We don't charge to loan the devices. The loaners are free. Now, that works in this country because I have their credit card, I have their, debit card, I have their entire history, right? It may not necessarily work in every place. If you give it to them, they may take it and walk away with it. That's a possibility. So you have to really think about what kind of resource you have and what kind of community you practice in, and whether or not you can trust your patients enough to loan it to them. So the flip side of it, the other side of it, may be to use the occupational therapist to train the patient in their home with your devices and then basically bring it back. So you're not necessarily loaning it, but you're allowing it to experience it in their home. So that's another option. From a personal standpoint, I can tell you, since I started this clinic in 2007, to date, I have raised close to $850,000 in grant money. $500,000 of it, $500,000 came from one man. And guess what I gave him? It was a +4 diopter ad. That's all it was. That's all it was. It was a +4 diopter ad. Okay? Because nobody thought to try a little higher. Okay? It changed his life. He was a busy attorney. It changed his life. And I don't have time to share the entire story with you, but that's how it came about. And there are plenty of stories like that. There are plenty of patients out there. We get grants, we write grants, $30,000 worth of grants every year. I write grants. Sometimes I get funding for $1,000, sometimes I get funding for 15, sometimes it's 30. It doesn't matter. If it comes, we'll take it. So the loaner library and all the testing equipment I established with the help of a Lions Club International Foundation Sight First grant. Now that might be something you all could access, okay? The Lions Club International Foundation Sight First grant is meant for helping establish services in various parts of the country and the world. Your local Rotary Club would be another grouped approach. So originally when I wrote the grant for the Sight First grant, I wrote it for $50,000. I was working at a Harris Health County clinic, and these are ultra poor patients. They had nothing. And I felt desperate that I had all these testing equipment to show them, and I'd get the patient all excited and they would be so happy, tears streaming down their face because they can see their kid's face all of a sudden. They were like, oh, yo hablo, like meaning they can read now. Okay, I can see to read now. That's great. Okay, how much is it? Oh, it's $3,000. And then their face would just sink, right? And it just really, really bothered me that there was nothing I could do to help them. And that's how I thought I would write a grant. I'm going to buy all these people devices and I'm going to give them devices for free. So I set about and wrote a grant for $50,000, thinking that per year I could purchase 50, 60, 70, how many ever of them, and I'd give it away. That's what I would do. And the foundation turned me down and said, try again. We're not going to give you devices to give it away. You can't do that because it has to be sustainable, right? Whatever you do has to be sustainable and it has to last a long time. It can't be a one-year deal. So I sat down, rewrote the grant, rethought the whole process, and this time I wrote it for $180,000. And guess how much got funded? 164,645 got funded. And my department gave me another 10. So I was pretty close to my target of 180,000. Okay. So think out of the box, think bigger. We tend to silo ourselves into thinking that this is all we're going to get. This is all we can do. Wrong. Think big, think out of the box, and go for it. You may fall short, but that's okay. You'll be better than where you started, right? We tend to think small because we think that's all we are capable of getting. Actually, you would be so surprised that when you truly make a change in somebody's life, there's no monetary value for it. You need only one grateful patient. So before this grateful patient that I was telling you about, Mr. Dan Arnold, who's the clinic is named after, I saw him originally in 2007 November. I started the clinic in 2007 August, or late November, late October I started, and he came in during November. Okay, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know, what he was capable of. I didn't know that even had financial capability like that. So after I got done seeing him, and all I did was a +4, that's it, right? And he went back, and a week later, I got a check for $5,000 in the mail with a lovely letter saying to my chairman, saying, "Hey, she needs a better space." So I ran to the chairman and I said, "Oh my gosh, look, somebody gave me $5,000. Nobody ever gives me money." I'm like, wow, well, hallelujah, I got money. And my chairman smiled and he said, "Yeah, I know, I got a copy of it." So that's how the journey started. And each time he came in, he would give me $5,000 to help somebody that was poor. And in 2016, he endowed the clinic. So in 2014, we got the Sight Savers grant. And with $165,000, I bought equipment for demonstration. I bought equipment for the loaner library. I bought all my charts. I convinced the department to give me more space. And patients started flowing in. The more the patients start flowing in, you've got so many happy people. And I made every happy person write me a letter. Every happy person wrote me a note saying why they were happy. Thank you notes. I have about a stack of thank you notes. And I made sure I forwarded every one of them up this chain. Okay, look what we're doing. We might be low volume, but we're very, very high value. I only see 6 patients a day, and I'm very proud of it. From a productivity standpoint, I might not sound very productive. But what I don't bring in terms of service RVUs, I make up for it in sale RVUs. I make up for it with grant money. I make up for it with services that I provide for free to the patients, so we attract more funding. So much so that my department, the president of the university decided to make me a face of UT Health. So many faces of UT Health is a campaign that the university does to promote some unique services that the university offers. Of all the ophthalmologists in the department, they chose me. Why? Because I can prescribe a +4. Because I make a change in somebody else's life. Okay, not because I did something earth-shattering. That it's the reason why I think they chose me was because I serve the underdogs. I serve people that are not helpable by anybody else. Everybody else has given up hope. And all of a sudden, here comes somebody that can actually give them hope, give them a chance to get back, right? We raise funds each year. We give away CCTVs or reading machines, electronic reading machines to children. This year, we're giving out 12. Last year, we gave out 10 or 15. The TV news crawls all over it. They love that. They eat it up. They're like, oh my gosh, she's giving free stuff away. Okay. It don't cost me anything. We raise funds and we partner. So you don't have to do it all, is the point I'm trying to make. Don't try to do it all yourself. Be a team. You gain more from each other. You're better when you're a team. Work with ophthalmologists, but you don't need to work in the same department. You don't need to work in the same hospital. You can be totally independent and provide a comprehensive program, but understand what a good program looks like. And then you pick and choose segments of it that you're able to do. Not everybody is going to be able to do what I just showed you, because it takes resources, right? If you're part of a big hospital system, then you have money. But you also have to have support from higher up. Without that, you're not going to be able to do it. Okay, if your chairman or if the head of your department does not support it, does not get the same vision that you have for your patients, this is not going to work for you. But can you still provide low vision care? Absolutely. Pick from what I've given you. There are different levels of low vision care. But if you can't provide it at that highest level, at least know who is providing it. That way you can refer your patient to that person after you're done providing whatever you're providing. There's nothing wrong with not being able to provide everything, because it's all resource dependent, right? But I didn't start out with resources either. I worked part-time for 6 years and got paid part-time, but worked a full-time schedule. And in that other 50% of the time, I wrote grants, proving to the chairman that, look, if you let me do this, this is what I can get you. And it only took 3 months for them to realize that, oh my gosh, we should have been doing this all along, right? So it generates goodwill in the community. It generates goodwill for the doctor, it generates goodwill for the practice, it generates goodwill for the hospital. It doesn't matter where you are, it generates revenue. So it's a win-win. But you need a lot of patience. It's not a high volume though. It's not a quick buck. You're not going to make a quick buck. When they do need bioptic telescopes, when they do go for the bioptic telescopes, yes, you may make them. You will definitely do justice to your revenue cycle, right? But the money is not the reason why you do it. You do it because it's the right thing to do for your patients. The money just comes. Okay, I'll close with that, but now questions.
Thank you so much, Bhavani. That so resonates with the philosophy at Acchutha as well. Do what is right for your patient and things follow as it is. So we've had a lot of brilliant feedback. Awesome talk as always. So glad you reiterated the importance of a good refraction and how a simple +4 can make all the difference in the world. So Preeta says awesome attitude. I think she's talking about think big, think out of the box and go for it. I think that's what she was talking about. Again, I think it's been a big eye-opener to a lot of us as practitioners in India, where we kind of think low vision really doesn't generate revenue at all. We always kind of sideline it. And to actually see that it can be a viable business proposition is absolutely brilliant. I think it has just opened up an entirely new field of practice for a lot of people who have attended this. And I'm sure for a lot of people who will be listening to this on the YouTube videos over and over again. So thank you so much. So you have a lot of brilliant feedback over there, and some of them saying inspiring talk. There's just one question here which says, normally, what is the cost expenditure for low vision management in the US? What does it really cost for a patient?
Well, I can share with you, well, you said it's getting recorded, right?
Yeah.
So I might be I don't want to break any rules because I'm not allowed to openly discuss prices. Just because if it were a direct talk, it might have been okay, since it's
I know. No, I guess you could just tell us
but I can tell you what the state reimburses. Okay.
Yeah.
So a state contracted, the state tells you how much they'll pay you. Okay.
Right.
The state only it doesn't matter. You can charge $1,000, but they're only going to pay you so
Right.
much, right? So an average low vision exam, the state will pay about $330
Right.
for a 1-hour exam. Okay. That includes your refraction, that includes your testing, whatever you do. Okay. Now, third-party payers like Medicare, Aetna, Cigna, your Blue Cross Blue Shields of the world, they may pay at a higher rate, they may pay at a lower rate. If it's Medicaid, they'll pay you $35.
Right.
But you still spend the same hour, if not more, right? But that's what I mean. Like when we see a patient, I try not to look at what they have. I try to look at what they need. And then I will tell the patient, look, based on your functional issues, this is what you need. Now you tell me what you want to do, because you are the best judge of what you can or cannot afford. The moment I start prescribing based on your affordability, I'm not prescribing for your function, I am prescribing for your affordability, okay? So I first prescribe based on what I think is the best for that particular patient. And then, but you still have to work with that person, right? It's not enough if you just prescribe it and say, if they can't afford it, then what, right? So then I will ask the patient, what do you think? If the patient says, no way, Jose, I'm not going to be able to afford that. Okay, no problem. Here's a less expensive option.
Right.
I like to call it the Ferrari option and then the bus option, you know, so you can drive a Ferrari and get there, or you can drive a bus and get there, or you can drive a regular car and get there, right? You can also walk and get there, but that's going to be pretty slow. So you give them different options, different price options. So as a practitioner, it behooves you to know that you need to be carrying options that are just not at that upper level, but you also need to carry different options at lower levels and see how to make it work for that patient. Like for instance, a CCTV costs about $3,300, an arm-based CCTV, okay? $3,300 or $3,300, right? Not everybody can afford that. A lot of my patients cannot afford that, but they may be able to afford a $700 electronic portable magnifier. But then from a functional point of view, a CCTV has a big screen. You're talking a 22-inch screen. Now a portable magnifier has a 7-inch screen. Hello, how are you going to make that work, right? Great. So then you educate the patient and say, look, this portable magnifier you can take with you when you go shopping.
Right.
But once you come home, you can very easily get a large monitor for like $150, $200. Get an HDMI cable and connect this guy to that screen. Now you've got a CCTV. And you only spent $800.
Right.
So you've got an option. Okay. Is it the best? Yeah, from a functional point of view, it'll do the same thing, right? You cannot do everything with it. You cannot put your makeup with it, okay? But you can do other stuff. You can read, you can write with it, you can flip the leg up. It's all about compromise, right? So you work with that patient. Another great example is the OrCam, right? The OrCam is a wonderful OCR device. It's fantastic. I mean, I love that device. You just put your finger and it talks. But then not everybody can afford it, right? It's $4,500 or something like that, somewhere up, you know, somewhere around that, $4,250, I think, is what it costs. Not everybody can afford that, right? So then what do? Then you look at, okay, well, do you have a smartphone? Sure, most of them have a smartphone. Let's download some apps on it. The Seeing AI app is a wonderful app. It's free, right? It's not going to recognize faces for you. It's not going to tell you who's sitting in front of you. It's not going to do all that. But that's where your education comes. So it's very, very good, but you need to know what you're getting. As long as you make an educated choice, you're fine. As long as you're educating your patient and saying, this is what this does, this is what this does, this is what this does. You tell me what you want to pick. and you let the patient pick. I don't ever force anything on a patient. A lot of times they'll come in, they'll get educated, they'll look at all the devices, and they'll be like, thank you very much, Dr. Iyer, that was very helpful. You're like, you're welcome. See you back next year. We'll do the exact same thing 3 years in a row. won't buy anything. And that is A-okay. That is A-okay. It's okay for them not to buy when they come. Don't be disappointed if they don't buy.
Right.
As a business person, do not be disappointed if they don't buy. You educate them, because you're primarily a doctor. You're primarily a caregiver. You're primarily a physician. You're a provider. That's what your focus should be. Your focus should be educating them. If they purchase it, great. If they don't purchase it, we part as friends. Sometimes I'll even loan it to them and say, why don't you take it home and try it for a few weeks? And if you don't like it, bring it back. It's okay. It's not a big deal. And they come back next year because they know that I'm not pressurizing them. They don't
That's
feel
right.
the sales shark attitude from me, right? So you have to know you're gonna win big in some places and you're not gonna get anything in some places. And that's perfectly fine. It's just the attitude with which you approach it. I hope that
think
answered
Gopi,
your question.
yeah, no. I think Gopi really feels that, because he usually sees the low vision patients here at Acchutha low vision clinic, and they'll spend an hour and a half, and then one day they'll come back with a sale, and one day he just says, not keen, and that's it, and that's okay too. So there's another question which says, do you prescribe multiple devices, or do you try and keep it simple?
My first goal is to keep it simple.
Okay.
Okay. I desperately try to keep things very simple, but I also educate the patient and say that the same tool is not going to do everything. Okay. If this is not a pair of glasses. These are not normal pairs of glasses. It's not like you walk in, you put a pair of glasses on, you can see far away, you can see up close. Yeah. And if they say, but then I could see it when I was 30 years old, and I'll be like, you're also not 30 years old right now, right? You're also 80 right now. Your vision has changed. Your demands have changed. Your eyes have changed. For this change, for the task, if you want to drive, I need to give you something that'll help you meet the legal requirements for driving, which means it's a bioptic telescope. But the same bioptic telescope is not going to allow you to read your book. Well, technically you can say, oh, I can focus it and read up close, but with a 12-degree field of view, that's like 3-4 letters at a time. You're not going to get anything. You're not going to be able to read comfortably, right? Because it's not intended for this purpose. That's a different purpose. This is a different purpose. So have one distance goal, one reading goal, and one intermediate goal. Okay. So separate it out by goals, and then you'll find that you probably are prescribing 2 or 3 options. Usually at least 2 options.
Okay.
So to answer the question, multiple devices? Sure, sometimes yes. Okay. But not all on the same day though. I won't prescribe them all on the same day. It's too overwhelming for them.
Right. So Preeta has a question for you. She says, first of all, writing grants for clinical practice is something new that she's learned from you. So she asks, how do you decide on the grant amount, and how do you write, because it's not the same services that you provide for each patient? And won't they ask a guarantee as to number of patients, and you have to report back to the grant agency regarding how you spent the grant and things like that?
Absolutely. Anybody that gives you money is going to want to know what you did with it.
Every rupee spent. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when we write grants, we think of programs, right? We write grants. So what is the purpose of your grant? Are you trying? That's where I would start. What am I trying to do with the money? Am I trying to buy devices? Am I trying to create a program? Am I trying to hire somebody? Am I trying to build a place? Am I trying to pay salary? Those are 5 things that I would think about what you are trying to do. Depending on the foundation, each foundation will tell you what they will cover.
Right.
Most foundations will not pay for building. Most foundations will not. Most foundations will pay for providing services to the underserved. Some foundations will only give you a grant if they have an office in the local city. If they have a presence in the city that you're in, they have staff in that city, then they will give you a grant. So you want to think about, what am I trying to do? Like, for instance, I'm fixing to write a grant. Okay, well, actually, I already wrote the grant. Okay, we wrote a grant for $10,000. What do we want this grant for? So we provide support groups. Once a month, we provide a free support group for our patients where we cover various topics. Cooking with vision loss was one topic that we covered. We bought a bunch of Instapots. We brought them in. We made oatmeal. We made, potatoes, fries. We got an air fryer. So, we cooked. And all these patients are visually impaired. They learned about tactile. They learned about buttons. So we need money to purchase all this. That was last support group. The support group before that, we had somebody from the IRS come and talk about what is disability? What kind of disability should I apply for, right? Do I qualify for legal blind? Do I qualify for Social Security? What do I qualify for? Another support group was about iPhone adaptations. What kind of accessibility features are there on an iPhone, right? So each support group has a different topic, and it's completely free to our patients. We don't charge anything. They come in. They still have to pay for parking. They cannot drive themselves there, right? We still need to reserve the space. There's nothing called a free lunch, honey, okay? Somebody's paying for something, right? So in order for you to extend so you need, plus there's time, right? Like staff time. I am taking time out of my clinic. I'm not seeing patients and generating income during that time. My OT is not seeing patients during that time. So we need to offset her time. We need to offset my time loss and revenue from blocking out my time. We need money for the supplies. We need marketing materials. Our medical students are the ones that run it, right? So we need marketing materials, and then we need to help offset parking. So what we write the grant for is to help support the support group. So each month we draw out a certain amount from it, and then at the end of the year, we write back a report, and then we ask for more. Our OTs also go to the patient's home. One OT goes to the patient's home, one OT sees patients in the clinic. As a clinic, our reimbursement is not any different if the OT sees them in our clinic or goes to the home. We get reimbursed the same amount. Oh. But then when the OT goes to the home, because these patients can't come to the clinic, right? Like they're not driving. We just told them not to drive, right? And they live alone. How are they going to get to you, right? How are they going to come to the clinic? You just told them don't drive. So how do you access bridging the gap, right? You need something to bridge that gap. So when you send an OT to the patient's home, if they're in clinic, they can see 7 patients a day. Right. If they go to the patient's home, they can only see 4 a day. Right. So instead of seeing 7 1-hour appointments, they'll see 4 hour-and-a-half appointments. Right. And then we still have to pay the mileage. Right. Yeah. The travel. Exactly. And the toll. Right? Oh, yeah. So that's called bridging a service gap. Our reimbursement is the same, but there's a service gap, right? If we don't offer these services to these patients, all those patients will lose the ability to be cared for. Absolutely. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what we are doing, so when we write grants, you want to write grants that feed into that need. So you identify a need, and then you tell them how to fill the need, and then you create a budget for it. So usually, like for us, because I've been writing it since 2007, the narrative is all up here for me. It's not that hard. I can just like rattle it off. But you have to work with the development office. Usually if you're part of a university, the university will have a development office, somebody that knows how to write grants. Community grants like these are actually easier to write than research grants, because you just have to say how many patients, how much is the cost per patient, and What is your projected expenditure? What is your, overhead and whatnot? They don't like the word overhead, by the way. They won't pay for overhead. Most foundations will say, screw that. I'm not going to pay for it. So you want, so that's how you write it. So you structure it by starting out with, what is your need? What are you going to do? What are you trying to do here? Start there, and then work it down.
That sounds really good. So there's one last question that we're going to take before we close. What are the main devices that you prescribe for help to help patients draw, write, etc.? This is from Jemima.
For drawing and writing.
Yeah.
So remember, if they want to draw, so you can prescribe a whole bunch of stuff, but not anything that sits right on top of the paper, because you got to be able to get your hand underneath, right? You think like that. So the simplest one would be just a pair of reading glasses that's stronger, with a stronger ad, as long as you set it for 30 centimeters, so at least they can get their hand down and write.
Yeah.
Now, that's the simplest. You could try an Opticade, which is a simple clip-on. That could be tried, depending on how close they're willing to get to and how much magnification they need. I love the Zoom X. The Snow 12 is a great option. It's a very flat screen, and it comes with a foldable stand. They can get their hand underneath. A desktop ARM-based CCTV like the Acrobat is any CCTV is great, because they can get their hand underneath and write with it. Bold line paper, bold line pencils, think out of the box, basically.
Gopi, that's the questions I can see.
Yeah. I think most of the questions which were raised while registering, I think Dr. Bhavani has answered beautifully during the talk, and I could really connect to most of the slides what she was presenting as a clinician and being a researcher in low vision. So I thought, okay, I will just summarize 4 to 5 key points what she was mentioning, like keep it things simpler and take it forward, educate the patient, and collaborate with departments in terms of occupational therapies, and so that you can do wonders to the patient. And again, write research proposal. Don't write research proposal. Write more of clinical requirements as a grant, so that you can develop and set a backup for your revenue model as well. So I think that's the major key point takeaways from today's session. And I think if if you have any points to add up, Dr. Bhavani, and over to you, Dr. Mrs. Sarnya, as well. Yeah.
Actually, there's just one other thing which I thought was very, very relevant as far as Indian practice goes. Don't second guess the referring physician. Don't do your stuff there, and don't try and overlap, and don't second guess, because once you do that, you've lost the referral, you've lost the referring physician as well. So just make sure you do yours and stick to your field.
But that doesn't also, I'm glad you said that, but that doesn't also mean that you just blindly accept, no pun intended, right? Because a lot of times what I see will not make sense with what the physician sent the patient for. So then what I do is I pick up the phone and I call the physician and say, hey, thank you so much for referring this patient. I have her in my chair in the other room. I'm not talking in front of the patient. But this is, I know you sent him with an acuity of 20/40, but he's measuring 20/400. Do you think he might be having a bleed event right now? Shall I dilate him and send him back to you? Or do you want me to just dilate and take a look inside and perhaps share pictures with you? How would you like me to handle this? Throw the ball right in their court. They love it. They eat it up.
I know.
They all love it. They all love it. They were like, no, I want you to take care of it. I'm like, okay, done. Right? So you establish trust, you build a relationship with the referring physician. All my physicians are ophthalmologists that refer to me. And I've had them, the same physicians will refer, for the past 15, 16 years, they've been referring. And anytime I had issues, this is what I tell them. I had one that came in with an acuity of 20/50. And then I'm sitting and doing my microperimetry, and I see a homonymous field cut that showed up on the testing.
Wow.
The doctor didn't mention anything about it. So I leave the patient there. I never talk in front of the patient with their referring physician, because you don't want them to think their doctor was bad.
Right.
So, so I walk away from there and I go to the other room and I call the doctor and say, hey, you sent me with a diagnosis of ARMD, but I'm seeing a left homonymous hemianopia. I think he may have had a stroke. Do you see that documented on your chart? Because the chart that you sent me didn't have that on there. Shall I send him to the emergency room? Is this an acute event that I'm seeing in my chair? Right? It could be an acute event. It could be happening in front of me. Right? He could be having an occipital stroke right in front of your face. And if you didn't know to second guess it, you also don't want to just blindly accept whatever they're saying. Be smart. You're a physician. You know what you're doing, right? You've learned your diseases. You know your diseases better than, you know, anybody. You see them all. That's the best part. You know, as a low vision doctor, I see more pathology than anybody else in the department, because cornea will only see keratoconus, and, you know, like corneal cases. You know, retina will only see retina cases. You name the eye disease and I have seen it. VKH, no problem. Behçet's, no problem. Axenfeld Rieger's, oh yeah, I've seen that. You know, so yeah, you see everything, all kinds of diagnosis and all kinds of pathology. I have seen it. And the reason why I've seen it is because they all impact the vision. But if I didn't know anything about it, I will Google it. Or I'll ask the patient, wow, I've never heard of that one. What is that? You know, it's okay. You're not God. Right? But you do know a lot more, because you do know a lot more about a lot of diseases. So if things don't add up, I want you to get up and speak up. They respect you for that, but speak up in a very polite manner. Be respectful, not to step on their feet. You know, that's the key. And I mean, I don't know. I know sometimes hierarchically things are a little sticky, you know, depending on where you practice. In my practice, I am the oldest goat in town, right? Like I actually outrank most of the people in my department because I've been there so long, right? So for me, I'm not afraid to go talk to another person. Like, but sometimes if you, depending on how, oh, Siri wants to listen to me. So, but depending on like where you practice and what kind of practice pattern you have, you may not feel comfortable talking to, you know, your chairman or, you know, whoever is referring to you, but get comfortable is what I'm trying to say. Don't be afraid to speak up, because you are the best at what you do.
Very true.
They don't know what you do. They don't get it. They don't want to get it. I don't try to do what they do, and they won't try to do what you do if you are the best at what you do. Be the best at whatever you do. It doesn't matter what you do, but be the best at it. So they respect you for it. So you can stand up and say, nope, I disagree with you. That's not what it is. This is what it is. Then they'll be like, maybe she's right, you know? So they'll listen to you more. You deserve that respect because you are the best at what you do. You have a lot more knowledge than you're giving yourself credit for.
And I think that's the best way to actually take this home today. Be the best at what you do. Keep working at being the best at what you do. Keep being updated. Please stay updated on whatever is happening.
Tool and retool all the time. You have to tool and retool, and then tool again, and then retool again. Yeah. If you stay the same, you get dusty.
Yeah. So, you know, Gopi always keeps telling this to students here. You know, ma'am has finished. So Bhavani and I are classmates. So when we finish together, I think I still read now as much as I actually kind of read more now than what I used to read in college. So I'm forever reading papers, I'm forever sort of reviewing things, and I'm trying to see where we can do things better and things like that. So Gopi always keeps saying, you know, if they are doing it now, can you imagine how much we have to do now as students to get to where they are there? So thank you so much for that.
You learn a lot more after you graduate.
So true.
You really
I think you're more relaxed. You're not looking for the marks. So you're kind of reading for knowledge. for knowledge sake,
Exactly.
rather than, trying to figure out how to score. So thank you so much, Bhavani. Thank you. It's been such a beautiful talk. And it's been such a great beginning for the day for us. And, sorry, it's quite late for you, getting you after you got home. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a great session. We've been getting wonderful reviews. Yeah, see, there's a lot of people agreeing now. I'm getting a lot of messages saying great session, great great inspiration, eye-opener, inspiring talk. So thank you so much. Bhavani was always different when she was in college as well. She always had a plan and she worked towards that plan. And I can see that. I can see where it has got her today. So I think there's a few take-home things, like she said. Choose what you want to do carefully, work towards it, think out of the box, and go for it. So that's how we're going to end our talk today. Thank you so much, Bhavani. Real pleasure having you here.
Great. Nice to see you guys. And
you.
hopefully I'll see you in person soon.
Yep. Very soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining and for the wonderful session by Dr. Iyer. And we hope to continue with many Inspire sessions following in the upcoming months. And see you all in another Inspire series. Bye bye and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.